Everyone, Cadian Sergeant Steel here, and today I want to talk to you about the Nova Open narrative event in 2023. So, as you can see, I have this is part of it, a Cadian cosplay outfit. And that is because I decided to go all out this year for the Nova Open narrative 40K event that they host every year. This is my second year attending, and this is my second video on it. But this one, I will cover it a little more broadly. And I also want to talk about some of the amazing experiences I had while at the event. So in my opinion, the Nova Open narrative event is the best narrative Warhammer event in all of North America. I've been to several, I've not been to all, but it's going to be really hard to beat this one. So what makes this event special, and why, as a narrative player, do I think it's the best narrative event that you could possibly go to? So they've done several things for the event to help make it very immersive and also allow you to participate at a level that you are interested in doing so. As for participation, there are 3 tiers to participate. That may change in the future, but in 2023, there were 3. So you could be a warlord. In other words, you are one of the leaders for your faction. You could be a lieutenant, in which you are somebody who participates in all of the daytime games and can even assist or be promoted to warlord if there are any gaps or openings available during that time period. And then you can also sign up for this year what they called Spec Ops, which was the evening events, which was optional and open to everybody. So you didn't have to be a lieutenant, you didn't have to be a warlord, you could just play in the evening games. So why would you do that? Why would you maybe only choose to play in the evening games, which are completely optional? I think that is because the other thing that makes this event really amazing, that is the tables and the missions. So this event features a whole array of custom tables. There are 24 custom tables available for this narrative event. And they're updated and brought back every year, and the missions change a little bit in order to keep it fresh and interesting for the returning players too. So there's usually a lot of new players as well. So it's the first time they're seeing a lot of these things. There's also, this year was introduced 2 or 3 new tables, bringing the total up to about 26. It was meant to be 28 tables. A couple weren't quite finished yet, and that was okay. That didn't negatively impact the event at all. It was intended that we had a few to spare, and so we could choose from the available tables that we were playing. These tables are each themed and really beautiful. So you have, and they're all 4 different planets that we're currently playing on in the event. So the 4 planets are Fortuno, Parthus Talos, Ignotix Prime, and Venixia. Each of these planets has a theme and has its own special narrative. These planets each have tables that are themed such as libraries, open wastelands, drilling rigs, power generators, Blackstone pylons, deep urban warfare, and there's a couple of those with each their own little niche. There's an oil refiner, a Prometheum refinery. There is a ritual mound. A couple different ones of those, actually. One for the orcs and one also for maybe chaos. There was a new one introduced this year, which was a keep. It was Wyvern's Keep. I got to play on that one twice, just out of happenstance, and that was really fun. There's a trench table and just so many more. And so if you're looking to play a particular kind of Warhammer, say you want to play with lots of ruins and those ruins are on fire, there's a table for that. Or you want to do one where you have to climb to the highest point of the buildings, there's one for that. What if you want a big hill in the middle of the table and some ruins surrounding it? There's also that. What if you want to play on a big open wasteland with only a few spots to conceal your units and lots of movement expected on the table? There is also that as well. Or trenches, or keeps, or forests. There's all kinds of different things to get into on these tables. And I think that's half the fun. And so when you are going to do your pairings, which happens a few different ways depending on whether you're playing as a warlord lieutenant or doing the spec ops games in the evening. And usually you get choice of pairings, right? You get to choose your opponent and the table that they're on, or you get to pick the table and then you get an opponent. It's really fun, especially if you're like, wow, I've always wanted to play on the trench table. Go for it. If you get assigned to that planet or it's available, go onto the trench table, which I got to do. That makes this event really special because there is no terrain out there like this. Most of this is custom made terrain for this event. So you're not going to find this at Adepticon or at the Las Vegas Open or other events like that in North America. You're going to find this solely at Adepticon at the narrative event, which is really wonderful. The other thing they've done this year, which is really cool, is they opened it up to more game types. You could also choose to participate in a Titan event, Kill Team event, Aeronautica Imperialis event, which all also impacted the game. For example, there was a very large Titan battle on the second or third day of the event. It's a 4-day event. And so on that day, the Titans were fighting over a landing field, I think on Fortuno. And the opposite faction that I was on secured it. So they had the landing field. And everyone was fighting and trying to get into the depths of this planet to secure an STC. What was it? We weren't quite sure. But it was sacred to the Omnissiah, so all of us were going after it. Or is it blasphemous? Guess we won't know until we find it. So, they were fighting over the landing zones to hopefully get the STC to take it off the planet. They secured that, but then my faction was able to secure, well, to get closer to the STC. I don't think we quite secured it yet, but we were working towards it. That's another great part of it, is there are 2 overall factions. There's Salus Praetus and Obitus Excidium. And so they're meant to be somewhat neutral, although in my opinion, the Salus Praetus are the good guys. And the other faction, they have turned to the tides of chaos, unfortunately. The other great thing about this is they tied it into the broader universe of 40K in a way. And so we do have the 4th company of the Raptors are involved in this, and their captain for the 4th company is there, which is really cool. We've been fighting over that in the narrative and to save him. There's also this really strange tech priest who keeps saying these odd things. We don't quite know if they're good or bad. And all of this came out of these 2 characters in this wild world that we're on, all launched out of the Citrix Maledictum, right? The big, huge warp scar that's ripped across the galaxy. And these planets were thought to be gone forever in the warp storm. And then they appeared. And those are the only 2 figures, that Space Marine Captain and that Tech Priest, that we've encountered so far until the end of this year, in which someone new was introduced. We don't know their name yet, and we will find out next year. This is the kind of exciting narrative that gets woven with the team aspect of it and these 2 characters that are neutral and this new one, which I don't think will be neutral, in which we are interacting with in the story. The other thing about the teams also is that the larger factions are actually broken into smaller teams. So each team, there are 4 teams on each faction, and each of those has 2 warlords to help manage the teams and help lead them and direct them, and also to help the players who may not be familiar with the event understand how it operates, how the missions work, how the table pairings work, and so forth. So, like, for instance, with my team, team number 3 on Salus Praetus, we were called the Greater Hammer, because last year when we formed the team, I was paired up. The other warlord was a Tau player. So I had worked with him, and that's the way we came up with our team name. He did not come back this year, I don't believe. He wasn't able to make it, at least. And so we kept the team name, and we went, and I had a wonderful co-captain this year as well, and some amazing teammates. So there were 6 of us on the team, 3 this year, and it was really wonderful. So with that team, what we did was me and the other warlord, and then the 2 warlords from the opposing faction, we got our teams matched up. would then go back and forth and do pairings, depending on attacker defender. Defender got to pick the first table, and then the attacker picks their pair, their player to go up against that. Then the attacker picks a table, and then the defender. And so you go back and forth kind of doing this matchup, which is really great. Because not only does it allow you to pick your table, it allows you to pick the army you may or may not want to play against as well, or even the player, just in case you're looking for a certain personality type in your games to be played. Now, the other thing about this event is it is a narrative event. So players come to the table with a narrative mindset and attitude for the most part, which is really wonderful. I got to say the vast majority of players who participate in this event are narratively focused, and they bring beautiful armies with all kinds of interesting little lore or details and really fun lists that they bring to play with. And it's a really great time. I got to say that nearly every player I met was absolutely top notch and a total blast. I really can't say enough about almost every single one of my opponents and how great of a game we had, whether I won or lost. And this year, I got to play against some players I've played before in other events, whether at Adepticon or at the previous Nova Open or in the Pittsburgh scene. Nobody else from where I live came down, so there was nobody from my local club. But I did get to play other people. And one person I just want to give a shout out to in particular is Keegan, and he was absolutely amazing. As always, we played 3 games now. And we got to do a rematch of last year in which Keegan brought his orcs and I brought my Astral Militarum, and we just went at it. And that was actually my first game this year. And it was at the Wyvern Keep, the new table. So I was very excited about it, and it was a lot of fun. We clashed in melee. There was all kinds of gunfire. Things blew up. It was just total chaos. It was a really wonderful time. So definitely really cool to do things like that, and especially to see folks that you know and you enjoy playing against and you can play with again. So I'm very excited about things like that too, because a lot of the folks do come back for the event. It's a lot of fun. The other thing that also makes it interesting, and I want to stress this part a lot, because what separates this event also is not only the tables, not only the player base, but the missions. So Chris, who runs the event, and this year he had 2 people assisting him. He had Tyler and Spencer there also, both really wonderful people in addition to Chris. But Chris wrote these amazing missions that were play tested with Tyler and Spencer, I believe, and some other folks. And what they do is we had 3 tiers to the mission and the ways to score points. So you had planetary. This is basically your primary in competitive play. That's hold 1, hold 2, hold more, or hold 2, hold 3, hold more. And that's all it was. Really straightforward, very basic. So everybody can pick up on that very quickly. The second part of the missions is, even though 10th edition does not include actions, actions were included in this mission packet, and there were rules and explained how they worked. And usually each action told you when it completed, just like back in 9th. A lot of them did complete in the movement phase, which was nice. Some of them didn't complete until your next battle round, which was really tough. And what you would do, you would perform actions on the same 5 or 6 objectives that are on your map. Kept it really easy, very straightforward, and easy to kind of understand the battlefield and where you needed to be to do certain things to score. Really cool. The third part, okay, and these are separate. So planetary, battlefield, then you have campaign. So campaign is where you get into the larger narrative. What is your team trying to accomplish on that planet? So what we did, we drew from the Tyrannic War Leviathan deck, right? The new deck of cards that came out for 10th edition at the launch. And we used those secondaries. And that will determine what we're doing. But we were given narrative hints by the event organizers, whether Spencer, Tyler, or Chris. And they'd be like, you need to get farther into your opponent's battlefield and hold more territory. So you pick extend battle lines. Or you need to fight a war of attrition and no man can be left surviving. You take no prisoners. But they don't tell you what to take. They do make you kind of look through the deck, and then you and your fellow warlord, you're looking through and you're like, what do we think it is? And you draw out your card and you're like, it's this one, and you hope you're right. Normally you are. They're pretty good about it. And then you go back and you meet with your team and you secretly disclose the campaign mission. But you got to keep it a secret until it's scored for the first time during your game. And this way, there's also kind of this fun narrative surprise element to your battle. And so whether turn 1, 2, or 3, or whenever it happens, you're like, and my opponent, guess what? And you flip over your score sheet on the backside. Our secret campaign mission is extend battle lines, and I have scored it for the first time, and you put down your 5 points. You don't necessarily compete in campaign points in that way, but your campaign points are actually the most weighted and the most important points for your faction and whether or not you're winning. So there's different ways we talk about it narratively, the score while we're playing, whether you have control of the planet, whether you have control of certain battlefields, and whether you have control or whether you're winning in the campaign. And the campaign points, if you pick the right secondary, are weighted more heavily compared to the planetary and battlefield. Although those impact narratively what's happening. Can you secure the Wyvern's Keep, which had the 4th Company chapter master inside? By having control of him and helping to save his life because he was mortally wounded in the narrative, maybe that can contribute to what happens next year or later on in the event. Whether you control the power plants and you're turning on the Blackstone pylons or depowering them, and what happens to the warp and all the weird, wacky stuff on the planets while you're playing. So each of these things do matter in the narrative. And what I like is we work really hard towards them for 4 days. So we play, if you're signed up as a warlord, you will, I think, end up playing a total of a minimum 8 games. Because you do the opening day and then you do you do a morning and afternoon for the first 3 days. So you do 7. Okay, 7 games. And then you have the option to play in the night games. And so you could add an additional, I think, 4 games. And then at that point, you could play up to 11 games. This year, and I'll talk about this in a separate video, but this year I only played 9 games. I actually gave myself, last year I tried to go all out. I signed up for every game. I tried to do everything. And I was totally exhausted. I lost my voice. I was too tired to stand. My legs were shaking. And despite how much fun I was having, I just was, it's a physical event to play these Warhammer events. And I was struggling. So this year, I gave myself a little leeway and took an evening off. And then I took an unexpected evening off as well. Just because I didn't feel like one evening, I was just really tired. And I was afraid I wasn't going to be my best self. And I wasn't going to be able to give my opponent the game that they deserved. And so I went up to the event organizer and asked if I could just skip out and actually change it to another evening. And that's what I did. So I guess all in all, I ended up playing 9 games. So I guess maybe the max is 10 and I'm forgetting a count somewhere. But that's not the important part, exactly the number of games. But there's a lot of options. There's a lot of way to engage. There's a lot of way to play. And even in the evening games, the Spec Ops games, you don't do the campaign. You just do the planetary and the battlefield. And so kind of one less thing to work out, one less thing to kind of coordinate. And this way also the evening games, the people coming in, maybe potentially from the competitive events, don't score the campaign missions and therefore don't end up skewing what's happening for the narrative players who are playing definitely the first 2 missions in the day. I think it's a really great system. So it gives everybody the option to participate, but it also allows for the narrative players to have the greatest impact on the event. Although I can say, because of the players, because of the warlords, because of the teams, because of the event organizer, these matches, these planetary holds, these battlefield holds, the campaign mission is close every time. We are always kind of like neck and neck, like 6 points apart, 20 points apart, and things that can just like that switch the tides of the battle. And that's just because of everything kind of synergizing together, allowing us to have these really interesting scoring systems and the way we play. We get excited when we are playing these things. All of us, we're like, oh, but if we do this, this character dies, or maybe these pylons get activated in this way, and then the warp energy gets dimmed down and we're safer. Or maybe the warp energy, the pylons get shut down and the warp energy comes in and it goes completely chaotic and everybody's getting mortal wounds or whatever might happen. We one of the examples was there was like a spaceport above one of the planets, had all these anti-gravity components on it. And so the team who controlled that battlefield had the choice of, do you disengage all the gravity mechanisms on it and allow the space station to crash into the planet like a giant weapon? Or do you save it and help evacuate all the citizens out of the war? Last year, they chose to disengage the gravity mechanisms, crashed it into the planet, and then we couldn't rescue very many citizens. That was the opposing faction, which is why I'm saying they are the heretics. So lots of cool things like that happen because of the way all of this is structured. And some battlefields maybe narratively matter more than others. Right? That happens. That happens in a story. Not every field, not every forest, not every mountain, not every ocean is as important as the next one. And so we do have that, and they give us hints about it. This year it was like the power generators, the library on Fortuno, I think was critical because that was the access down, I think, to the STC and underneath the planet. And then the Wyvern Keep was really important as well. There was also a drilling rig kind of table that was really cool and important as well. And so each of these kind of have a different weight, and that also so in case it matters to you, you're like, guys, we really got to take this one planet. We really got to take this one battlefield. And you're like, hey, so that requires maybe this type of army and this type of play style. And we get this guy on our team. We've been assigned the planet. You are probably the best one to pull that off. And so we do that. I actually got assigned to the Wyvern Keep the second time because everyone thought I had the best ability to defend the keep. And so I got placed there again. I did defend it well the first time. I did not defend it well the second time. So it was neat to be able to do that and to make decisions that way. And it's also good because you as a team can decide, oh, I don't think my army would be very good on an urban table or on the trenches or on the ritual table. And you can say, I really want to play this one because I think I would have fun doing it, or I think my army would be good at it, or whatever that is. And we had several of those. And we had a great kind of, we had a good team this year. Especially, we had 3 Space Marine players. We had a Grey Knights player. We had a Tyranids player. And having a hard time remembering, actually. But regardless, we had a great makeup, and especially with the Space Marine players, it allowed us to be very flexible because they were very flexible armies and allowed us to either hold tables or attack tables or do objectives or not do objectives. So it was really cool to kind of see it happening. Oh, the other one was an Eldar player. There we go. Bing, got it. Something else really cool happened this year. And one of the things they did was they expanded the awards available. There was a number of awards. There were painting awards. There was display table, display board awards. There were whether you scored the least points, whether you scored the most points, whether you scored the most points as a warlord and helped lead your team to success. We talked about overall team placement and scores too within the 2 different factions. We looked at a large number of different things to give out awards for, which is really cool and really helped the players to kind of feel involved. And I gotta say, I feel like most players who participated were surprised by what award they received. And so that's really cool. And I didn't feel like too many things were really obvious. For example, Tim French, who was there and actually was my roommate this year, and it was really great of him to support me that way and to let me crash in his room where he had the extra bed. Tim brought an Imperial Knight list, and he played really well. He had a great army. He had a lot of fun. Opponents said great things about him as well. He lost a few games too. He struggled on a few missions because, right, knights can struggle with actions. And so that was a bit of a challenge, I think, for him on some tables, or even in certain matchups were challenging as well, just like any of us. 40K is a big, complicated game. But in the end, Tim had scored the most points as a warlord and helped lead our faction towards a better victory. And so he got that award for our faction, which was really cool and really well deserved. But I got surprised a little bit, and I want to talk about that. So I entered my army into the painting competition, which was on the 3rd day. And I brought my Cadians, as I always do. I'm a hardcore Cadian player, right? So I brought my Cadians, I brought a display board, and I put my army out there. I had done this last year, and I think I have a good looking army, right? But I didn't get any awards, and that's fine because I paint to a little bit, I think, above battle ready standard and all that. I did get a pleasant surprise, and that was I won what they call the Warscaper Award, which is best display board. I really appreciated that because I did design a display board that is very vertical and narratively fitting. It's definitely destroyed industrial ruins, and so I always think about like my army looking for promethium in order to power our vehicles, and needing to come in there and maybe try to drain the tanks from the damaged industrial facilities to fuel their vehicles during this big, complex, drawn-out war. So I think that's a cool narrative. Whether anybody picked up on that or not, that's fine. I even have a building there towards the front of the table that's meant to be like the office building of the industrial complex that got destroyed. So it's a little thing in the front to help kind of create some tiers. Oops. Huh. Our little guy broke his head. Guess I'll have to call him Humpty Dumpty now. I'll glue it back together. Anyhow, so I did hang it up because I'm really proud of it, and being able to get this award here was really cool. So thanks to Chris Stover, the event organizer, and the people who judged everything for the painting and the tables and stuff for the certificate. Because this is actually the first painting award certificate I've ever gotten. And, I've been doing this for a long time, and that's really special to me. Because I feel like I put a lot of hard work into my army, and now I just got something cool for it. And that's really great. But I want to talk about also another great surprise that happened. So the other cool thing about this event, and the third to last award to be given out, there's a lot of awards. I think there was like over 16 of them this year. And that's really cool, especially given the number of players that play and the different ways you can kind of receive recognition. And that's really cool. And early on, they do things like the painting awards and the hobby awards. And then they do like, based upon your team rankings, you get to go pick prizes out of the prize pool. And I think that's really cool. And the prizes were nice, and there were good kill team boxes and dice sets and other things like that. So we go through all the awards, and I remember there's one in particular that stood out to me last year. Spencer, who was actually part of the team this year running the event, won this award last year. And what's special about this award, and they had the event organizer for GW come over and talk about it ahead of time. And the person who wins this award receives a free ticket to go to the Grand Narrative event in Atlanta this November, which is the largest narrative event, maybe in the world, but at least North America. So it's the biggest one, even though I think the Nova is so far the best I've ever gone to. The Grand Narrative is even bigger. And I heard nothing but amazing things at the very first one they had last year out west here in the US. This award is called the Spirit of the Narrative Award, and this is a vote. So all the players vote at the very end. So you got to stay to the end to be able to vote on this. And they vote for the kind of person. Spirit of the Narrative encompasses kind of a lot of things. It's the person who helped you get into your games. It's the person who helped you have a great time. It was your positive opponent. It was your great teammate. And it's the person who carried the spirit of a narrative event, and this event in particular. So to my surprise, I won the award. And I want to say to my surprise, because the quality of players at this event blows my mind. The amazing people that are there. And I apparently got the most votes. And I was floored. Actually, the pictures of me, I'm sure I'm gonna put a few in the video here, are not the most graceful looking pictures, because I was just so stunned that I was just like doing crazy faces in my surprise. Um, when this was handed to me, it was very special because Spencer was the person who first handed me the award, and because he was the first recipient, so he got to give it to me this year, and as the first recipient, and that was very special to me. Spencer was the first person last year who reached out to me and helped me make acquaintances and helped me kind of get orientated to the event and what was going on. And that was really cool. So last year, well deserved to Spencer. He was amazing and just he's a great guy and he was a lot of fun to hang out with. And I got to see him again this year, obviously. I sometimes I don't know. I still wonder why like what I did, in which I got the votes. I mean, I was in cosplay this year, and I was very excited. I was yelling all the time. I was doing chants, Cadia stands for the Emperor. Um, I was always trying to motivate my opponent in our games as well, because your opponents can vote for you. Anybody can vote for whoever this player is. It's not just your own team. And I was always cheering my opponents on during the battle, whether I was winning or losing. I was just having a great time. I lost my voice. I was taking cough drops like they were candy to try to keep some resemblance of a voice during this event, which was really cool. And yeah, I don't know. I was having a great time. I was also thought I was maybe the lunatic at the event, just yelling and being constantly excited during all the briefings, during all the games, during all the play. It was just really wonderful. So I I'm still shocked. I am very humble by winning this award, which I believe to me is the most important award. Um, I'm never going out there to get the most points. I'm never going out there to win all my games. And but I'm not throwing my games either. I bring an average or slightly above average list. I play well. I think strategically, and I try to at least do middle of the pack at minimum, if not a little bit better. And I always want to try to make sure my opponents have a great game too. And obviously, I think that happened, since they likely voted for me in that. And so that's really cool and really special to me. I think I nearly cried when they handed me the award. No joke. It was very overwhelming. Um, and then so immediately afterwards, the warlords who scored the two highest points on each of the factions got their awards. So that was the two final awards, and this was the third to last award. And I'm still stunned, and I can't say thank you enough to my team, to my opponents, to the other players, to the event organizers. It was just such an amazing time, and I can't believe I got a chance to win the award that matters to me the most. And I think for the rest of my years of playing Warhammer, this is going to be the greatest award I ever receive. Um, because narrative and fun games are what matter to me as a player. I think you all know that watching my channel and following me on Instagram. And the fact that I got recognition for that at my favorite event in North America just means the world. And so I'm looking forward to going to Atlanta. Probably going to have to reach out and try to find somebody to room with, because that's really going to put a strain on my budget this year to travel like that again. But I will make it down. And also taking my army down, I think I'm going to have to drive. And I live in north central West Virginia, just south of Pittsburgh. So it's 14 hours. It's a long drive, but I'm going to have to figure it out or figure out a way to drive somewhere and then get on a train. So I can actually transport my army down there. So I am looking forward to that. And then meeting all the cool GW staff. And then I will, once again, bring my cosplay. Even though it was a little bit uncomfortable. It was my first time learning to do cosplay. But I'll wear it again because it was so much fun and people really enjoyed me in it. So I couldn't play games with the helmet on. It was loud in the event hall and it echoed really bad inside the helmet. I did try. I wore it for about a third of the game against my opponent in round one, and had to take it off because I could not hear them. It was very difficult. So if you see photos of me probably in a baseball cap, that's because that's how I dressed down, got my helmet off in order to be able to hear and play in my games. But I should get a patrol cap for next time. So this way I could actually switch from helmet to patrol cap, just like in the models. It was a great event. I obviously had a great time. The fact that I won what I view as probably the greatest award I could ever receive as a narrative 40K player. And I would, if you feel the same way I do about Warhammer, or even somewhat like I do, and you want to play the same way that I play and I talk about, then this is the event for you. This is the event to come out to and have fun in year after year. And people are always welcome to come back. That's all I have for this video. I just wanted to talk about it. I want to talk about the awards and what they mean to me and how special they were. If you are going to the Grand Narrative event in 2023, I will hopefully see you there, and I'll be in my Cadian Sergeant Steel cosplay outfit. So that'll be very exciting to show that off again. I don't think I got any pictures in really good lighting. Wargamer Girl did an interview with me, which was really cool. And I'm hoping maybe their high quality camera picked up my cosplay outfit a little bit better. And then I did get a couple really good photographs from one of the event photographers, and that was nice. But other than that, the lighting was really challenging in the lower levels where the events were taking place. And that's where most of the photos of me came from. So anyhow, just want to say thanks again to everybody at the event, and thank you to you all for watching this video and watching my channel. So if you're new here, please subscribe. I'm going to be trying to be having more discussions about narrative play, and I also talk about hobbying, and every once in a while a little bit of tactics, a little bit of unit discussion. And then even more rarely lately, but I do battle reports as well. So I'll be trying to get back into those here in the near future, but my hobby space has been a bit of a miss lately because I've been getting ready to do host events this fall at my local gaming club. So with that, have fun gaming, and as always, Cadia stands.